the chains you thought were yours? What if everything you think you're losing is actually everything that was never yours to begin with? What if the heartbreak, the failure, the disappointment, the betrayal, what if all of it was life's gentle, or sometimes brutal, way of peeling away the illusions you've mistaken for identity? You see, we live in a world where we are taught to define ourselves by our attachments, our relationships, our careers, our social status, our possessions, even our own thoughts. And when any of these dissolve, we panic. We think we're being erased. But ancient wisdom, especially from the Stoic philosopher Epictetus, offers a radically different perspective. You are not losing, you are becoming free. Epictetus, born into slavery, disabled, without wealth or status, insisted that freedom is not found in gaining more, but in needing less.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
He believed that no man is free who is not master of himself. So ask yourself, are you master of yourself, or merely the hostage of your circumstances? The truth is, what we call loss is often just the falling away of what was never truly in our control to begin with. That job you didn't get, that person who walked away, that version of yourself that no longer fits. These aren't signs of failure, they're signs of evolution. But because we're conditioned to equate stability with success and permanence with value, we misinterpret the collapse of false structures as personal defeat, when in reality it's an invitation to something deeper, more authentic, more aligned. Epictetus reminds us that it's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. So when something bad happens, the pain we feel isn't from the event itself, it's from our belief that it shouldn't have happened, that we've lost something vital. But what if that belief is the very thing enslaving you? What if the only true loss is the loss of your inner sovereignty? The Stoics taught that there are only two domains in life, what we can control and what we cannot. And peace, real peace, unshakable peace, comes only from focusing exclusively on the first. You can't control whether someone loves you, but you can control whether you betray yourself to earn their affection. You can't control the economy, but you can control your adaptability, your resourcefulness, your resilience. You can't control the past, but you can control the story you choose to tell about it. So here's the real question. Are you willing to stop clinging to outcomes and start cultivating your character? Because when you do, loss transforms. It becomes teacher, not enemy. It becomes mirror, not punishment. It becomes liberation, not suffering. Most people think they want freedom, but what they really want is comfort. And comfort is often just a beautiful word for stagnation. True freedom, Stoic freedom, is uncomfortable because it requires you to let go of everything that once made you feel safe, but secretly made you small. Think of how many things you've held on to, not out of love, but out of fear. I think of how many times you said yes when you meant no, just to preserve an image, a relationship, a reputation. Epictetus would say that every time you surrender your inner clarity for external validation, you're choosing slavery. But every time you let go of what isn't yours to control, you reclaim a piece of your soul. So when life strips something away from you, don't ask, why is this happening to me? Ask, what falsehood is being removed? Because sometimes you don't need to add anything to your life, you just need to subtract the noise. You don't need to become someone better, you simply need to uncover who you were before fear took the wheel. You're not losing, you're becoming free. And yes, it's terrifying. Yes, it hurts. But pain is not the enemy illusion is. Pain is often the necessary friction that dissolves illusion. And if you're willing to face it, to sit in the fire without flinching, you'll find that what burns away is everything that was never truly you. What remains is something indestructible: your will, your reason, your freedom. So the next time something or someone leaves your life, don't rush to replace it, to numb it, to fix it. Instead, pause. Breathe. Ask, what am I being shown? What am I being called to release? What truth is trying to reveal itself beneath this discomfort? Because freedom doesn't always come with a trumpet. Sometimes it comes wrapped in grief. Sometimes it comes disguised as failure. But always it comes when we stop resisting what is and start aligning with what's real. Epictetus didn't need wealth, status, or physical freedom to be free. And neither do you. All you need is the courage to let go of what you never actually owned. You're not losing. You're becoming free. Here's the paradox: the freedom you're desperately chasing out there through achievements, relationships, recognition, or escape has never been outside of you. It's something you forgot you already had. And the more you chase it, the further from it you drift. Epictetus didn't just teach freedom as a concept, he lived it as an inner stance, a posture of the soul that no external condition could touch. Born a slave, physically disabled, he had every reason to believe he was powerless. Yet somehow, he discovered the ultimate rebellion, to claim sovereignty over his own mind. He realized that you don't wait to be set free. You remember that you already are. And that's why this path is not about acquiring freedom. It's about stripping away every false belief that convinced you you were ever trapped. Ask yourself this: who told you that your worth is measured by how much you own or how much you achieve? Who taught you that failure is shameful, or that sadness is weakness, or that you must be chosen by others to feel valuable? These ideas are not yours. They're inherited, absorbed, programmed. And every time you act on them, you reinforce the cage. But when you begin to question them, not just intellectually, but existentially, you begin to feel the bars dissolve. And that's when something extraordinary happens. You stop trying to be someone, and you start being. You stop performing your life like a role, and you begin living it as truth. This is why loss is often the greatest gift, because it exposes the fragile scaffolding we leaned on to feel whole. When it crumbles, we're given the terrifying but liberating opportunity to stand on something deeper, something real. But most of us resist this. We want freedom without sacrifice. We want growth without grief. We want to become without unbecoming. But it doesn't work that way. You cannot carry your illusions into awakening. You must drop them one by one, like heavy armor that no longer protects but imprisons. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." What he meant was, if you want to live freely, you must let go of your addiction to approval. That's one of the hardest chains to break. Because approval is seductive. It tells you that you're safe, that you belong. But it also tells you don't change. Don't question. Don't outgrow the tribe. So we shrink. We silence ourselves. We stay in situations and identities that no longer serve us, just to keep the illusion alive. But there comes a moment, a sacred, often painful moment, when the soul can no longer tolerate the lie. That's the moment you wake up. That's the moment you remember. Freedom isn't given. It's remembered. It's the natural state of your being before fear, before programming, before the world told you who to be. And it's in that remembering that you become dangerous not to others, but to the systems that thrive on your forgetfulness. You become someone who cannot be manipulated by guilt or fear. someone who cannot be bought with flattery or broken by rejection, someone who does not need the world to agree in order to feel whole. That's real power, but it's not loud. It's not flashy. It's quiet, like gravity. It pulls you inward. It grounds you. It makes your life less about controlling outcomes and more about aligning with truth. Epictetus called this living according to nature, not in the sense of trees and rivers, but in the sense of living in alignment with your deepest, most honest self. And that self is not frantic. It's not desperate. It doesn't cling. It doesn't chase. It simply is. And from that place, everything changes. You begin to see that people leaving your life is not always a loss. It's often a clearing. You begin to see that not getting what you want is sometimes the greatest mercy. You begin to see that every no from the world can become a deeper yes to yourself. But you have to choose it. That's the hardest part. No one can remember your freedom for you. You have to do it. You have to walk into the fire of change, knowing that parts of you will not make it through, but knowing, too, that what emerges will no longer be a prisoner of fear. So ask yourself, what would your life look like if you stopped trying to control everything outside you and started mastering everything within? What would it feel like to stop performing and start being? What would it mean to live a life where nothing outside of you has the power to disturb your peace? These aren't hypothetical questions. They're doorways. And if you walk through them, if you dare to live like your freedom is already yours, you'll discover what Epictetus knew all those centuries ago. That no one can imprison a soul that refuses to identify with its chains. You're not losing. You're remembering who you were before the world told you what to fear. You're not breaking down, you're breaking open. You're not being punished, you're being purified. And that ache you feel? That emptiness inside the loss? That's not your destruction, it's your expansion. It's the vastness of your true self rushing in where illusion once stood. Don't run from it. Sit in it. Let it teach you. Let it strip you. Let it remind you. Because the truth is, you were never trapped. You just forgot. You were never broken. You just believed a false story. You were never lacking. You were just looking in the wrong direction. So stop looking out there. Stop waiting for the world to hand you the keys. Freedom isn't handed to you. It's remembered within you. And the key? It's already in your hand. The power to walk away from what you never needed. There comes a moment in the silence after loss when something stirs, not the old self scrambling to rebuild its former shape, but a new awareness rising from the ruins. And in that moment, if you're willing to be still, you'll hear the faint but undeniable truth. You were never meant to carry all this. The pain, the pressure, the expectations, the masks, it was never yours to begin with. You've been walking through life wearing armor for battles that aren't even yours, fighting for identities that were handed to you before you had the chance to choose. But now, after the wreckage, after the collapse, you have a choice not to return to what was, but to step into what is real. This is the quiet revolution of the soul. And it begins, not with addition, but with subtraction. Epictetus taught that freedom is the power to walk away from what you never needed. Not out of bitterness, not out of anger, but out of clarity. And that's the kind of clarity that only comes when you've looked loss in the face and realized it didn't destroy you, it just revealed you. So many of us fear letting go because we think we'll be left with nothing. But what if the opposite is true? What if letting go is the only way to finally have everything that matters? What if the weight you're terrified to drop is the very thing keeping you from flying? You see, every time we attach our peace to something outside ourselves, whether it's a person, a job, a belief, we give that thing the power to own us. And that's not love. That's not purpose. That's not truth. That's dependency. Epictetus would say, if you want to be invincible, don't enter battles where your peace depends on the outcome. In other words, don't gamble your inner freedom on things you cannot control. But we do this all the time. We try to fix people so they'll stay. We mold ourselves to fit roles we've outgrown. We sacrifice our deepest values in the name of survival, only to wake up one day and realize we've survived everything except ourselves. And that's the real tragedy, not the loss, but the slow erosion of the self that happens when we forget we're allowed to walk away. You're allowed to walk away from what doesn't feel like truth, what drains you, from what shrinks you, from what confuses your soul. And you don't need permission. You don't need validation. You only need vision, the willingness to see clearly, and the courage to act on that clarity. This is what freedom looks like in the real world. It's not loud, it's not glamorous. It's not a one-time breakthrough. It's 1,000 quiet choices to no longer abandon yourself. It's declining the invitation to people please. It's turning down the noise of the world so you can hear your own voice again. It's waking up every day and asking, what is mine to carry, and what have I only picked up out of fear? That's the Stoic way, not to numb yourself from life, but to strip life down to its essence so you can fully engage with what matters. And what matters is always within your control, your will, your intention, your integrity. These are the only things no one can take from you. And when you realize that, you stop fearing loss. You stop chasing outcomes. You stop performing. You start living fully, authentically, unapologetically. Because now you know the worst thing that can happen is not failure. It's forgetting who you are. And now you remember. That's the real awakening. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's not something you post about. It's a quiet shift inside you when you realize you don't need to be fixed. You need to be freed. And freedom doesn't come from getting more. It comes from needing less. Less approval, less control, less illusion, more truth, more stillness, more self-respect. Imagine living a life where you don't need anything outside you to validate your worth. Imagine loving without clinging, creating without comparing, walking into uncertainty without fear. That's not a fantasy. That's what it means to live in alignment with your nature. That's what Epictetus taught. That's what this moment of loss is inviting you into. A deeper life, a freer life, a life where nothing owns you because you no longer mistake attachment for love. Where you're no longer driven by fear of what you might lose, but by the joy of what you're discovering. And what you're discovering is yourself. The self that isn't defined by roles or relationships or results. The self that doesn't need to prove anything. The self that simply is. And that self is free. Always has been, always will be. You're not losing. You're becoming free. And now, it's not just a comforting idea. It's a truth you've earned, a truth you've lived, a truth no one can take from you. So walk forward not with fear, but with fire. The fire of knowing that no matter what falls away, What remains is more than enough. What remains is real. What remains is you. And that is freedom.